Hello and welcome to an update of the Perionyx, the Red Wigglers, and the European Nightcrawlers. As always, let's start off our update with our blue worms and see how these guys are doing in here. You remember we gave them plenty of new bedding because we harvested the bin, and you can look to my previous videos if you want to catch up. So I'm just gonna fluff this all up, bringing some air to the bottom and seeing how my guys are doing here. Everything feels really nice and moist. You can see I have no holes in any of my bins, and there is absolutely no liquid collected. But the bedding is nice and moist with plenty of castings already built up. So this is where I fed last week. And these little guys are all up in here, of course. So I do have some red wigglers in here. I have no idea how they got in here, but that's okay. The majority of the worms are blues, and you can tell by how they move that they are blue worms. They move really, really quickly. Yeah. So these guys are working on the material that I gave them. I think these are potato skins, and I didn't freeze these. So they're gonna be in here for quite a while. So let me give them another feeding and leave them alone. They don't like when I mess with them. Okay, a napkin with some apple core, and of course, banana skins because we eat a lot of bananas. We eat a lot of fruit in general, and our worms benefit from that. Okay, these guys are done. I'm just going to mark the area, get out of there, where I fed, and let's move on over to the red wigglers. So here are my red wigglers. And I did the same thing with this bin, harvested it, excuse me, and added lots of new bedding. Everything in here feels moist. Lots of castings. Again, you can see no holes anywhere and no liquid of any kind. I tried to keep it on the wetter side, but not wet. I know worms like a very moist environment, so in previous years I used to keep my worm bins on the drier side, but I noticed that they do so much better when it is wetter. So that's what I try to adapt to. That's what they like. That's what I give them. But I never ever have standing liquid of any kind or smells or castings that stick together to your gloves. It's all nice and flaky. Again, these guys also got the potatoes. If you want to feed your worms tubers, potatoes, potato skins, you know, things like that, I do recommend that you freeze them first. It's going to take them forever to decompose in here. You don't have to, but just that you're aware that it's going to take a long time for that kind of material to decompose. Okay, let's give these guys a feeding. They also get a napkin with some apples, right? And of course, banana skins. Give them a little bit more. Now I definitely don't weigh my food. I don't weigh the bedding and I don't weigh the kitchen waste. I just observe the condition of the bin. I know that when you start the vermicomposting, you hear information like red wigglers can eat what their weight of food, kitchen food per day. I found that absolutely not to be the case, and that's one quick way to overfeed your worms, kill them, sour the bin, and so on and so forth. I look at the bin, I see how much food was eaten, make sure it doesn't smell, it's not too wet, and then I will feed a little bit more and monitor how quickly these guys get rid of the kitchen waste. And then I add more. And I always keep an eye on bedding because you do want to make sure that you are giving carbon sources as well as a nitrogen when you are keeping worms. Okay, so these guys are fed. Let's go over to our European nightcrawlers. Here is the European nightcrawler bin, and you can see that we are getting this bin ready for harvest. The worms will work over what remains of any bedding in here, and slowly they are going to migrate to the area that I feed, leaving me with fairly worm-free castings. So this is where I've decided to feed, and that's what I did last week. I started feeding in this section, and I'm going to keep feeding in here. I laid down some bedding. You can see that the bedding has already started to become moist, and the wormies are moving over here into this area. And I'm going to lay down some more goodies for them right now to keep them in this area. I don't really know how long it's going to take these guys to move completely or mostly into this area. Sometimes they do it in a couple of weeks. Sometimes it takes longer, but that's okay. The majority of them really do migrate, and I don't have to worry about sifting them. And those that don't cooperate, oh well, they go for a nice little ride through the sifter. What are you gonna do, right? So I'm gonna keep feeding this area right here. And you can see even this, how well worked over. These guys are getting this stuff is really nice and dark. And again, it's very, very flaky. No holes. And the material is never so wet that I have to air it out for any real period of time. So we are going to leave these guys alone. You know, you don't want to bother the European night crawlers too much. They don't like it, and then they start crawling all over the bin. And now I'll go over to a bin I don't typically show, and that's my breeder bin. So this is my vermibag breeder, and it's just, you know, housed in this, it's a medium sized, I think I got it from Home Depot. It's a mortar tray. I have many of these mortar trays, and so I thought, well, you know, let me try this breeder bag out. I don't breed the worms. That's not what I'm getting this bag for. The reason I got it was because I wanted to use this this tray, but since it doesn't have a lid and the worms do climb right out of that tray, I thought this would be perfect to keep them in and use some of the material that I already have. So let's see. Now it has a really nice mesh over here, keeps the bugs out and gives you a lot of breathability. And of course I have to keep the bubble wrap on top because I live in a dry climate, and now the heaters are working 24/7, so it dries the air out even more. But look at this, it's all castings. So the bubble wrap really makes everything nice and moist, and the worms can't climb up. So that's what I like. They're staying put. This used to be a whole lot of bedding, and now it's a whole lot of castings. Happy, happy guys. So if you have a bunch of these mortar trays and you're wondering what to do with them to safely keep your worms, you can do this. These guys are really, really happy here. So just turning the material over. I think this is where I fed all this. Yeah, they're pretty much spread out because there's so much bedding and food throughout this bin that they are everywhere. Of course, when I start preparing it for harvest, then I'll be feeding again in one area, and they'll migrate to that area. So I'm going to give these guys a little bit of food. They do have the potatoes, but oh boy, those potatoes are going to be in there for a while. So they'll just have also same thing pretty much as the other bins just got. I will probably slow down giving them the kitchen waste once I decide that I'm going to start getting this ready for harvest. But it's deceptively large. So I've got quite a ways still to go. You would think that it's very shallow, but it's not actually. It has enough depth for me to keep on going. So this is our breeder bin, and a great way to reuse some of the stuff you may already have around the house. That's our update. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. May you all have a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate.